I'm here with Sandra Hazlehurst, who is the Mayor of Hastings. Kia ora, Sandra, and thanks for joining me.
Kia ora, Andrew. Thank you. Great to be with you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. You've had quite a busy time. Last week, I think it was, the council wrapped up or made final decisions on your 3-year or long-term plan. Originally, the proposal was for a 25% rates increase, which I'm sure even stuck in your throat a little bit.
Yes.
And now it's down to 19%. How do you think the process went, and are you happy with where you ended up?
Kia ora, Andrew. Yes, it's been probably one of the hardest processes in my time as council to manage what the future looks like for us and being able to take the community's views. I mean, we started off and after Cyclone Gabriel, it looked like a 44% rate rise, and we needed to work out how we were going to manage our rebuild and our recovery, and with the uncertainty of funding from the Crown and the impact on affordability for our ratepayer. And it was a very, very difficult process. In fact, going out with 25% draft long-term plan and asking communities' views. And we heard very, very clearly that there was 75% of our community that said, actually, we want to go slower and we want to stick to, maintaining, looking after what we've got and no nice to have. So that was a really, really strong direction for us. And so we went back to our offices and said, hang on a minute, we just need to take some time, listen to the community and find a way to do this. We've got a $2 billion infrastructure investment over 10 years in the LTP. 10% of that is for growth, and the balance of that is looking after and rebuilding our roads and bridges. So, I call myself the self-appointed infrastructure queen, and that is our business. Our core business is we know what we have to do. We have to provide the certainty of good transport network, good freight and logistics, good Three Waters proposal, and all of these things need to come together and maintain what we have got. And we've got, a lot of assets that need to be looked after, and rather than keep adding and building new, actually look after what we've got. So we had a good message from our community. I was really pleased with the way the consultation process went, and we had a united council that agreed with that approach.
From 25% to 19%, that's quite a savings. So where is that money coming from? Is that borrowing?
Yes, it's borrowing, and it's borrowing to pay for operations, and it's actually pushing the loan out for a longer period. So, but my hope is that we have the ministers of the Crown. We had the Minister of Finance here on Friday, putting to her with our concerns about the certainty of a 5-year plan for our transport network rebuild, rather than, we've heard that there's 91 million coming into the region in this year's budget. We were invited to present. The Minister of Transport, Simeon Brown, has invited us to present for next year's budget, but we need a 5-year certainty. And that hopefully will be able to allow us to repay some of our debt much faster than what we have currently predicted in the LTP.
Just recently, Shane Jones, the minister, has put out the applications for the regional infrastructure plan. So, I've heard from the council that you are going to be looking at what you can apply for in that.
Absolutely. So these are the opportunities to advocate strongly to get more Crown funding. And, infrastructure is our core business. The pipe that's going in from Flaxmere out to the wastewater treatment plant in Clive is $40 million.
Wow.
And that is to manage all of the new housing and new developments in Flaxmere and the medium density developments in Hastings. So, we are a district that is growing, and we have to upgrade our pipes. And so that's what this whole LTP is based around, our capital works program, when we deliver it, how fast we deliver it, because all that impacts on the borrowing. But what I said to the minister on Friday is that, Minister, with a rate rise of 19%, and that is enormous for our community to manage. But we have to have some certainty from the Crown how we can manage our infrastructure in the future, and how we can work with the government with a 10 or 30-year plan, and that is regional deals and city deals that they are looking at, our framework for us to coordinate and work together, rather than us all, local government, central government, working in silos.
I can't remember a time when I've seen communities across all the councils in Hawke's Bay so engaged in the process. Regional Council had quite a tremendous response, Napier as well, and you as well. Would that assessment be true, that you think this time people were more engaged? And if so, why do you think?
Well, never have we ever charged a recovery rate. So that means that the urban community is actually funding a transport network, because our rating base is largely urban. And so, the cyclone has hit our hinterland and our rural communities. But, our region's GDP is based on what we produce in our hinterland and our primary industries. And so everybody knows that whether it's processing, whether our export dollar comes from what we produce in our rural communities, and our community and urban community understands, if the rural community is doing well, the city and urban community is doing well. So we needed to have that really, really important conversation with everyone to say, what we've never faced a natural disaster like this since the 31 earthquake. These are unprecedented times, and we have to do things differently. And how are we going to afford to carry on and rebuild and try and do it on our own, and have some strong certainty and advocacy from the Crown? But the community, they waiting to see the government bring some more money into our region. And I understand there's 3 ministers today up in Wairoa, been hit again. It's a really, really challenging space for us to be working in, and trying to, manage our infrastructure and look after it, and be able to support who Hawke's Bay is, which is an export-based economy.
Because it's not just the big events like Cyclone Gabriel. I mean, you had last week, on the scale of Cyclone Gabriel, quite a small event in Hamoana, but it was devastating for that community. I mean, all these sort of things you're going to be looking at. How do you future-proof areas like Hamoana and that? And it requires a whole different set of thinking.
Yes, it does. And, we've had the coastal hazards strategy now for about 10 years, and that, looks at how we manage these events now, whether it's a cyclone, tsunamis, earthquakes, and coastal communities. But what we have got is a, community who lives on the coast. We had a community day, emergency management training day, in March, and about 300 of Tiawong and Homoana community came out, and everybody kind of knew what they had to do in the next future event. But a lot of that also in Homoana is the infrastructure that the regional council provides, which is the pumps. And it's great that in their long-term plan they have got budget set aside for new pumping systems, because it's that system there where when the lagoons are high and the sea is high, and being able to, keep the community safe is absolutely critically important. And those pumps play a huge role in the safety of the Homoana community. But long term, these events they're incredibly challenging. But I'm really proud of how our community were prepared. They were ready. They had a door knock from the police. They knew that they had to go to friends or family and evacuate. And as soon as we lifted the state of emergency, they were available to come back. And as far as we knew, there was one house that was flooded. So, everybody worked really hard to rebuild the crest that was vulnerable in two parts. That's the stones. Our council is considering looking at a Tiawonga sea wall in front of the lagoon there. And so we had a really good proposal and submission that the community has been working on for some time. And that would be, if we can get that consent through, that wall could be up within 6 months to a year. So, it is about resilience. It's about resilient communities and people all pulling together and knowing what to do in an event like last week, or even bigger. And it's also providing that infrastructure to keep a community safe, and then us working out how do we target a rate for it and who pays. So those are the things that we'll be looking at in the future. But, people know now that if they live on the coast, there might be times when they have to go inland, and there may be some risk. And I think that, there's the community is ready and having that conversation and knowing what needs to be done.
We've been through quite a tough process, and it's not over yet with recovery and that. And obviously, we're talking about people's homes and lives and that. And as a council, you have received some flack from some communities about how you handled things, and obviously the voluntary buyout. There was some unhappiness with some communities and that. How do you think overall it has gone, and do you think you're getting past that?
I think the community is very happy with the voluntary buyout. The decision to see the homes being demolished at the moment is incredible. They're just getting on and getting that demolishing done. And our community was hurting. There's no question about it. People, I talked to some community members who are still not back in their homes on the weekend. They're still waiting for insurance. These processes take a long time, and we've worked as hard as we can and as fast as we can to get people into a place of certainty and security. And the voluntary buyout is going incredibly well. We will be finished by Christmas. We're cutting off at the end of August to say get your application through, and because we need to have a period of working through so we complete the process by Christmas. And we're working within the budget that we set, the $50 million budget. And some, the people who, there's always going to be the odd person who is really suffering and finding it really, really difficult. But the majority, and there's probably 80% of our voluntary buyout community and families who are very satisfied with the process. But if you've lived in the same place for 5 generations and you've lost your livelihood and you've been offered a voluntary buyout, well, of course, it's a very, very challenging decision to make.
But just back to the long-term plan, and there were people were quite vociferous on some things. One was the Frimley pool, and it's staying open, and you've agreed to keep it going for the next season and that. How did you find that process? Because it seems like you did listen to the community.
Yes, well, we had some community members that came forward and said, we would like to see it managed differently. And in my view, you actually do that first before you decide to shut something down. And the proposal that we had received was, that we could save $200,000 a year, and we're looking at savings across the whole organisation. And we've asked for significant saving from the staff, and the pools were not being used as they used to be used, and there's various reasons for that, like the community fitness pool that people now using in the regional sports park. So it's a brand new pool. So our pools, like Frimley, are used for families and recreation. And if we weren't servicing them with the correct hours, and some of the submissions we heard was, we could have barbecues and we could have food trucks and we could have a coffee cart and things like that, and create more of a family recreational area. Those are the sorts of things that we need to look at before you would shut the infrastructure like a pull down, without undertaking some of the community's concerns and wishes. So I think that this is going to give us a really good way to work with our community to say, do you want to use this place? Is this important to you? How can we work with you differently? I know that there's 30, because I met with the principals of the schools who have the swimming sports there. Are we charging you enough? Everything's got to pay its way now,
Yes.
because we can't keep putting our rates up. So things have to actually pay their way. And I've had that conversation with 2 organisations this week. We can't charge you $10 a year to look after this building. You actually have to pay a proper amount. And so this is what the cyclone has changed, is that
Yeah.
we have to be making sure that either people are using a facility, or we stop propping it up. And those are the hard conversations that we've had. And let's try this season to see if it works and people use it again. And if they don't, well, we have to revisit this.
Yeah. Quite interestingly, the regional council had a proposal where they were going to stop funding Tamata Park Trust, and they actually have changed that, and they're going to continue it for a year. That wasn't even on the agenda for your council, and you also fund the trust. Why was that a no-go area for you?
Can I just say that we are incredibly grateful to the Trust Board and how they look after one of our most amazing natural landscapes, and how they care for it. And when you think about when you look after a space, $120,000 a year for a place where all our visitors and our locals are up there all the time, enjoying that beautiful, beautiful Maunga, the Rongakako. And if we were to take over and look after it, it'd cost us a lot more than $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
And it's been a fantastic relationship with the regional council, sharing the load of caring for the pathways and doing the maintenance. And nothing like that should change. You don't play around with those things. In my view, you must stick to, if you've got an organisation that can run an asset for you, help them to do that. And that's why it wasn't even a consideration.
Just a few more questions. Recently, I interviewed former Napier MP Stuart Nash, and he was quite sort of strong in his views that there needs to be more shared services between Hastings and Napier in particular. And he even suggested getting a building maybe at the sports park or in Green Meadows, and putting everyone together and align everyone to be able to get their dog license, get liquor license, whatever there, and standardizing the process so everything is the same across both councils. Is that feasible?
Absolutely. With the regulatory part of our businesses, that is building consents and control, that is licensing, certainly we can be far more efficient. We've tasked our chief executives to look at more areas of shared services, and we have to be more aligned. We're doing it now with sharing one website, we're sharing IT, we're sharing payroll. But there are many other aspects of our business that we could certainly work far more collaboratively. We could even have an infrastructure assets region. So we've got all this work to do. And for us, as I've said, $2 billion over 10 years. And Napier have got a big program of infrastructure works. And we could have a shared service that has an asset management and infrastructure service. And that's just how we have to evolve. And develop as a region and do, Central Hawke's Bay has got a huge area of infrastructure, and this is what we could do. And what has worked really well is the Regional Recovery Agency, which could in turn in the future become a regional agency, and they could lead some of this water. They're helping us at the moment with the Local Waters Done Well and a feasibility and business case for delivering our waters as a region. So there are many, many aspects of our business that we could unify and work together in more than shared services, but actually where's our biggest spend going to be in the next 10 years? And it's delivering either Three Waters infrastructure or transport network infrastructure. And if we did that as a region and we pulled our resources, I'm sure we'd be far more efficient and effective and for our ratepayers. So that's an area that I'd really like to see some more work being done.
Now, you've spoken about reducing the debt, and I'm almost finished with my questions, but some people might say it's kicking the can down the road for next generations. What do you have to say about that?
There's no way we're kicking the can down the road for future generations. We've spent $100 million on safe drinking water infrastructure, and we've got, as I say, $2 billion in our long-term plan for growth, 10% for growth and rest for transport network. So, we are at the forefront of working with our partners, the government, the iwi and the private sector to make sure that we work, instead of us doing everything, how do we look at our assets? Do we have to own buildings or could we lease buildings, So we might need to look at selling some of our assets so we do have less burden and debt burden for our future generations to carry. And this is a meeting that I had, the conversation I had with the Minister of Finance. We physically cannot borrow any more money. We need to start reducing debt, and we have to look at ways in doing that. And that could be, selling assets. Not that we have a great deal to sell, but, we have to think differently. Do we need to own library buildings? Do we need to own public pools? All these sorts of things is, because our world has changed, and the burden, the borrowing burden of borrowing money and paying our way and paying and not increasing rates at the rate that we have been, we have to change the way we're thinking. And the local government and future finance and funding for local government has got to be looked at really, really carefully with central government, because simply we cannot afford to carry on and deliver the services we're doing at the rate of income that we have. And for us, it's about $170 million a year. And the call on us to do so many areas, not just our core business, to support. And we've simply said no. Everybody's been cut back on events. And for the next 3 years, it'll be a focus on the infrastructure rebuild, the infrastructure build for growth. And that's where we have to make a really, really, and be really disciplined on how we spend our ratepayers' money and the burden for our young people for the future.
You mentioned you might have to sell something. So what is top of the list that you think could be a possibility?
Well, I've just set up a mayoral finance advisory now, and we've got some smart minds and some independent minds on my advisory to have a look at what this could mean, and for us to, and it is about reducing debt. We do have land holdings. We're working with development partners to look at selling some of that land for housing and for commercial, particularly in the Flaxmere area. So, but it's just how do we work smarter? The Heretaunga House will be leasing places for our staff to work in, rather than building new buildings to house our staff. So we just have to look at all of our ways of doing what we've done in the past and revisit this and look at reducing our borrowings.
Last question, and I always ask you this. Do you have another term in you?
Oh, yes, you always ask me that, Andrew. That's next year. That's next year. My focus now is making sure we can get our recovery and rebuild underway as efficiently as we can and effectively. But I will be making that decision. But at the moment, I've just got to focus on us getting through what has been an incredibly hard year and hard 2 years actually. But I will let you know next year.
Sandra Hazlehurst, thank you so much for your time. It's always good to chat to you.
Lovely to see you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks.